What if I told you that the story of Jon Snow, the bastard who became a king, who died and came back, who discovered he had the blood of dragons, is not actually over? What if the ending we watched in May of 2019, the ending that left millions of fans heartbroken and furious, was never really the ending at all? Game of Thrones has been off the air for years now. The Red Wedding feels like ancient history. Cersei's face is carved into the back of our minds like a scar. And yet, here we are, still talking about Jon Snow, still asking the same question that has haunted this fandom since that final episode cut to black. Did Jon Snow get the ending he deserved? And more importantly, is there still a chance he might? Because the thing about stories as big as this one, stories built on prophecy, on ancient myth, on a hero that death itself could not hold, is that they don't end just because a television series does. The deeper you look, the more you realize that what we saw in Season 8 wasn't a conclusion. It was an interruption, a wound that never fully closed. And the evidence that Jon Snow's real story is still out there, waiting, is more compelling than most people realize. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you will change the way you think about everything that happened beyond the wall. Let's go back to the beginning, not to Winterfell, not to the wall, but to the moment the entire Game of Thrones fandom collectively lost its mind. The moment the Tower of Joy scene confirmed what we had theorized for years. Jon Snow was not Ned Stark's bastard. He was Aegon Targaryen, the trueborn son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. The internet broke. Literally broke. Servers crashed. Social media was a wildfire of all-caps reactions and shaking hands typing, "I knew it," at 2 a.m. Because this wasn't just a plot twist. This was the payoff. The culmination of years of fan theories, of carefully planted seeds in George R.R. Martin's books, of foreshadowing so intricate it bordered on the divine. Jon Snow's entire arc, orphan, outcast, Lord Commander, resurrected warrior, suddenly snapped into focus. Of course, he was the secret prince. Of course, the universe had been shaping him for something world-changing. And then Season 8 happened. And if you watched it, and you did because almost 20 million of you watched the finale in real time, you know exactly what I mean when I say that the Targaryen reveal had essentially no payoff whatsoever. Think about what was promised to us. 1. Jon's true parentage would reshape the political game and his relationship with power. It didn't. He spent most of Season 8 looking confused and mournful. 2. His status as the prince that was promised, the prophesied warrior of light destined to defeat the Great Other, would come to mean something. It didn't. Arya killed the Night King while Jon screamed at a dragon. 3. His Targaryen blood, his ability to ride Drogon, his connection to fire and dragons. All of this would make him central to the final conflict. It didn't. His best dragon moment was a romantic flight sequence. And 4. Learning the truth would fundamentally change Jon Snow. It didn't. He was the same brooding, reluctant, "I don't want it" man he always was, right up until the very end. He killed Daenerys, the woman he loved, the mother of dragons, the breaker of chains, because it was the only choice left to him. And that choice was brutal and earned in its own tragic way. But then what? He was exiled, sent back beyond the wall, back to the place he started, walking into the snow with Ghost and the free folk. The most important person in the entire story, the man who died and was resurrected, the heir to two of the greatest houses in history, walked off into the frozen wilderness and the credits rolled. As if that was enough. As if that was closure. It wasn't enough. And millions of fans knew at the moment they saw it. You have to understand something. Jon Snow wasn't just a character. He was a mirror. He was the everyman in an impossible world. The person who never asked for power, never schemed, never burned cities to get what he wanted. He was us. When Jon trained in the mud at Castle Black, awkward and overlooked, many of us recognized ourselves in him. When he chose the right thing over the easy thing, again and again, at enormous personal cost, we loved him for it. When he died, actually died, stabbed by his own brothers, bleeding out in the snow of Castle Black, the grief was real. Not performative. Real. And when Melisandre brought him back, when his eyes opened and he gasped that first rattling breath, The surge of emotion was unlike almost anything television had ever produced. Because this wasn't just narrative resurrection. It felt mythic. It felt chosen. It felt like the universe itself saying, "This man is not done yet. This man has a purpose that death cannot touch." He went from being called Snow, the name given to bastards, to the nameless, to those who don't belong, to being named Aegon Targaryen, of the blood of old Valyria, heir to everything. That journey is one of the most extraordinary character trajectories in modern storytelling history. He united the North and the wildlings. He fought dead men in a burning field. He faced down the night king himself, unarmed, terrified, and unwilling to flinch. He tamed a dragon. He bent the knee to save humanity. He stared down annihilation and kept walking forward. And then the show sent him back to the beginning. Nameless, exiled, alone in the snow again, as if none of it counted, as if the universe had miscalculated. The emotional investment fans had placed in Jon Snow's arc was enormous, and the payoff left a wound in the fandom that has never fully healed. Because the story felt unfinished. Because characters built for destiny shouldn't end in ambiguity. Because Jon Snow deserved more. The question is, will he get it? The answer lies in two places, and neither one has arrived yet. Here's something the showrunners of Game of Thrones knew and repeatedly admitted. They ran out of George R.R. Martin's source material around Season 5. From that point forward, they were writing their own version of a story that George had not yet finished. And the final 3 seasons, rushed, compressed, and fan-divisively concluded, were their best guess at where George was heading. Their best guess was wrong. At least, wrong in the execution, wrong in the depth, wrong in the mythological weight that Martin has been building into this story for over 30 years. Because when you read the actual books, A Song of Ice and Fire, the world George R.R. Martin has constructed is almost incomprehensibly more layered than anything the show depicted. The prophecies are more intricate. The history of the Targaryen dynasty is more complex. The significance of Jon Snow, or Aegon Targaryen, is wrapped in threads of fate and cosmic destiny that the television series barely scratched. In the books, the prophecy of Azor Ahai, the prince that was promised, is not a throwaway backstory detail. It is a structuring myth of the entire narrative. Azor Ahai was a legendary hero who forged a magical sword called Lightbringer by plunging it through the heart of his beloved wife, Nissa, and used it to defeat the Great Other and end the Long Night. The prophecy states that Azor Ahai shall be reborn, a warrior of fire and light, marked by salt and smoke, who will wake dragons out of stone and lead humanity in the darkness to come. Melisandre believed Stannis Baratheon was this prince. She was wrong. The evidence in the books, Jon's death by betrayal, his resurrection, his Targaryen blood, his connection to fire, points overwhelmingly to Jon Snow. And in the books, this prophecy has not been resolved. Not even close. The book version of Jon Snow's death, the infamous for the Watch assassination at the end of A Dance with Dragons, ends on a cliffhanger so brutal it makes the Red Wedding look like a gentle disagreement. Jon is stabbed multiple times by his brothers. The chapter ends mid-chaos, mid-bleeding, with a single haunting word, ghost, his direwolf's name. As if even in dying, Jon Snow's soul is reaching for something beyond himself. And unlike the show, the book version of Jon's story has not continued yet. The Winds of Winter, George R.R. Martin's highly anticipated 6th book, has been in progress for over a decade. When it arrives, it will tell us what happens to Book Jon Snow after his death. And Martin has been unambiguous. He is not telling the same story as the show. The resurrection in the books is expected to be profoundly different in its weight and consequence. Not a quiet awakening in an empty room, but something that cost Jon Snow something fundamental. Some theories suggest his resurrection burns away parts of his former self, as Melisandre's fire magic does. Other theories drawn from the books suggest that his warging in a ghost during his death may mean he comes back partially changed, more wolf than man, more instinct than restraint, a warrior unafraid of fire, a man finally ready to step into his destiny rather than run from it. And then, the Targaryen reveal in the books. In a narrative where political consequence actually matters, where the great houses are still actively at war, where Daenerys is across the narrow sea, building her army, Jon's true parentage changes everything. It makes him a competing claimant. It makes him dangerous. It makes him the center of a power struggle that the show resolved by simply not having anyone care. In George's version, in the real version, the version the man himself is still writing, the story of Aegon Targaryen is not finished. It hasn't even truly begun. But let's say you don't read the books. Let's say you live entirely in the world of television, of streaming, of the HBO universe. Does Jon Snow still have a shot at redemption? At a real ending? Yes. And here's where things get genuinely exciting. In the years since Game of Thrones ended, HBO has been quietly, and then not so quietly, building out the world of Westeros on screen. House of the Dragon has proven that audiences are not done with this universe. Millions of viewers returned, hungry and invested, to watch a dragon-fueled civil war play out 2 centuries before the events of the original series. The appetite for this world is undimmed. If anything, it has grown. And for a period of time that got fans deeply, desperately excited, Kit Harington, the actor who played Jon Snow for 8 seasons, was actively developing a sequel series centered on his character. The project was reported to be in development at HBO, focusing on Jon Snow's life beyond the wall after his exile. It had a writer's room. It had momentum. It had the involvement of George R.R. Martin himself, which is not something that happens casually. Think about what that story could look like. Jon Snow beyond the wall. No throne. No politics. No southern lords and their scheming games. Just a man with dragon blood and a dire wolf, walking into a land of ice and ancient mystery. But here's the thing about the lands beyond the wall. They are not empty. The free folk have been hinting for years at what lies further north. The children of the forest had their own civilization. The White Walkers came from somewhere. The history of what happened in the last long night is a mystery the show barely began to unravel. A Jon Snow series set beyond the wall isn't just about Jon Snow. It's about discovering an entirely new chapter of this world's mythology. It's about understanding what the Night King actually was, what the White Walkers wanted, why the spiral patterns appear near their presence. Ancient, ritualistic, connected to something far older than the Iron Throne. And Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, is the only character with the lineage, the history, and the survival record to be the guide through that journey. He has walked with the free folk. He has stood in the presence of the Night King. He carries fire in his blood in a world of ice. If anyone can unlock the secrets of what lies beyond the edge of the known world, it is him. The series went quiet. HBO slowed its development, but it was never officially canceled. And in this industry, projects that never officially die have a habit of returning, transformed, refined, and often more interesting for the wait. The Westeros universe is expanding. It will keep expanding. And Jon Snow's story, left so conspicuously open, is an empty chair at a table that HBO is actively filling. Now I want to offer you a theory, one that reframes everything we thought we understood about Jon Snow's ending, and transforms it from a tragedy of wasted potential into something far more deliberate. Something that, if true, makes the finale of Game of Thrones not a failure, but a setup. What if Jon Snow's exile beyond the wall was not a punishment? What if it was a calling? Think about every great mythic hero in the tradition that George R.R. Martin is drawing from. Think about the heroes of ancient legend, the ones who become truly great. Almost none of them become great inside the comfortable world they were born into. They're expelled from it. They are sent into the wilderness, into the unknown, into the place that terrifies everyone else. And it is there, in the darkness and the cold and the absence of everything familiar, that they discover what they actually are. Aragorn wasn't king of Gondor because he sat in a palace. He became king because he spent decades in the wild, among the rangers, in the shadow of his own fear of his lineage. Frodo didn't save the Shire by staying in it. He walked into Mordor with almost nothing and came back changed forever. Every resurrection in mythology serves a purpose. You don't come back from death to be sent to exile and forgotten by the universe. Death is the final test. What comes after is the mission you came back for. Jon Snow died for refusing to abandon his humanity. He was brought back because the world still needed him. And the world, the real world, the world of ancient ice and fire, of prophecy and cosmic war, lies north of everything. Always has. The direwolf he named Ghost, the white one, the one who survived, the one who kept running when every other Stark wolf was lost, is still with him. Running north, into the snow, into the story that hasn't been told yet. If that's not the imagery of a beginning, I don't know what is. Here is what I believe. And I don't say this as empty comfort to a heartbroken fandom. I say it because the evidence points in one direction. Jon Snow's story is not finished. George R.R. Martin is still writing. The Winds of Winter exists somewhere in some form. And when it arrives, it will tell us who Jon Snow truly is in the world of the page. It will give the Targaryen revelation the weight it deserves. It will let the prophecy breathe. It will let the resurrection mean something permanent and soul-altering. And it will, I believe, send Jon Snow not south toward a throne he doesn't want, but north toward a destiny that cannot be named yet, because we don't have a chapter where it unfolds. And on the television side, the universe is alive. House of the Dragon is proof that HBO knows the value of this world. The door on a Jon Snow continuation is not closed. It is ajar, waiting for the right moment, the right story, the right version of Kit Harington walking back into the cold and saying, "I'm ready now." Jon Snow has been ready for a long time. The world just hasn't caught up to his story yet. He came back from death once. He bent the knee to save humanity. He made the impossible choice when no one else would. He walked beyond the edge of the known world with nothing but a wolf and the blood of dragons in his veins. If there is a God of stories, and George R.R. Martin certainly believes there is, then that story isn't done. That story doesn't end with a man walking into snow. It begins there. The true name of the last hero was Azor Ahai. The true name of the last hero was Aegon Targaryen. And the true name of the last hero, the one the books haven't fully told and the sequel hasn't been made yet, might just be Jon Snow, standing somewhere beyond the wall, waiting for the story to find him again. It will. Stories like this always do. Tell me in the comments, do you think Jon Snow deserved a better ending? And if a sequel series was announced tomorrow, would you be there for it? Because I already know my answer. And something tells me you know yours too. If this theory lit a fire in you, drop a comment below and subscribe. Because the night is dark and full of episodes still to come.